Hello and welcome back to Why Are We Like This, the only podcast that treats Florida like the active crime scene it is. I'm David Quinones, and I'm joined by my co-host, busy man today. We caught him in between meetings. Our own best international feature, Tomas Kennedy. Tomas?
Hey. How are you guys today?
How you doing, man? I'm joined as well by that one cult film that you loved in high school that gets a critical reappraisal 10 years after it came out. Gerald Doherty. Hey, Jerry. How are you?
Due for a remake. Hi, how are you?
Due for a reboot. So we just wanted to catch up really quick on this Monday afternoon. Our most recent episode from last weekend, or from over the weekend, just went up. If you want to check that out, if you're seeing this in the feed, it's with Matt Leck talking about the little more serious topic, the burning cinder that the country will soon become under the boot of President Ron DeSantis. Fun stuff. So check that out. That's the most recent episode, and of course follow us at Walt Show on all of the various social networks. Guys, I never take the time to really promote us and up top, and that's my own error, my own omission, I think. But we're doing Oscar talk. It's movie day. It's movie time. None of us watched the actual event last night, so we're not going to be able to comment on the pomp and circumstance. But I asked you guys to come on to just give some generic thoughts about the films and the 2022, the year that was in cinema, and then also I prepared a brief little case file for us to talk about. But maybe I can kick us off just by opening up the floor and saying I'm kind of tired of being the only person that has to apologize for being the only person who loves the Everything Everywhere All at Once. And it seems like I was redeemed a little bit last night, but I know most people don't like Tomas is giving the thumbs down. Most folks not super happy about it. What do you guys think?
I'm a 3/4 up guy. I was never do people still say stan? It seems like there's a lot of standing of this film that I think is forced. This is my opinion.
I am standing this film, and it hasn't been forced by me. But I don't know, Tomas. Well, you talked about it the last time we talked about movies on the show. But what did you think about Everything Everywhere All at Once garnering all of this hardware?
Look, I'm just gonna be real. I went to see it at a drive-in, and it's not like I like drive-ins. I'm a cinema kind of guy, so I like watching films in all sorts of different settings and experiences. Yeah. But a driving is not the most conducive to paying attention to a film because you're in a car, you're uncomfortable, you have to you fuck with the radio.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna be honest, I ate an edible. I was really high. I mean, when you eat an edible, it's kind of like a hallucinogenic experience.
Yeah.
So
I was borderline stressful.
And it wasn't stressful, and it was really hard to pay attention to the film.
Did you find yourself getting impatient? You were like, oh, come on, fucking, I'm tired of this shit. That's what happens to me sometimes.
And look, I don't want to, I don't want to go into too much of a rant, but here's the truth. I really liked the film up until the interdimension bullshit starts happening.
Yeah.
And then the film, I thought the pacing was great. The building up was great. The characters were great. And then it just got really goofy and the fucking hot dog fingers, and it was just so fast paced and hard to keep up.
I felt that there's a spin-off to be made with the hot dog fingers. I felt like that was a second movie, maybe a bonus features, a short film that they crammed into the movie.
I want it.
I liked it.
Hope it doesn't happen.
I don't want to see that. No, thank you. What so what got shortchanged then? Because Everything Everywhere all at Once dominated last night and won almost everything. But what do you guys think was the movie that got shortchanged?
Top Gun.
You know what? I said this. I was talking with Jewish Dave actually, who unfortunately couldn't be with us right now. But I think that I'm not you guys know me. I'm not a cancel culture guy. I'm barely an accountability guy. Okay,
we are barely any type of culture guys. We are uncultured guys.
I think there's going to be a weird moment where we're going to have to explain why we deified a dude who owns slaves in the year 2023. I think it's good. There's going to be a point where we're going to be like, okay, but you guys knew that he owned slaves, right?
Wait,
and we're going to be like, oh, wait, Tom Cruise? And he's like, yes, he has actual fucking slaves 80 miles north of LA doing all of his work for him.
Oh, you're talking about the Scientology cult?
Yeah, the Scientology shit, the fucking Sea Org people. They're working for free against their will. And I know that we're changing education and shit here in Florida, and like we're changing definitions of stuff. But when I was a kid, we called that slavery.
There's a Church of Scientology. They have a massive building, like a couple of blocks away from both of our houses, David, and right there in US 1.
Their headquarters is in Clearwater. We need to do a Scientology episode one of these days. Although I feel like it's almost like a little bit late. But
let me tell you guys a little quick story, kind of like off topic. But when I was working full time at the Florida Immigrant Coalition, we did citizenship clinics. Right, these are like service provision type work. And one of the people that worked for me on my department was like, "Hey, I just got like these people from like I forgot the exact name, but it was like the Human Rights Coalition that hit us up, and they want to donate space for us to do some citizenship clinics near the Grove." And like I looked them up, and I was like, "Hey, like that addresses the Church of Scientology, and like this is a Church of Scientology front." And she was like very excited, like very like gung-ho. She's like, "No, I just think they're like they rent offices there. Like I want to go meet with them." I was like, "All right, go meet with them, but you'll see." So she went, and she comes back like after them, or she calls me after them, and she's like, "Yo, like you're right, they're like Scientologists. They're just straight up fucking Scientologists, and they want to like incorporate their whole like program into like the citizenship clinics, which are for U.S. permanent residents who want to become citizens." We were like, yeah, like we cannot team up with these people, but they actually have a whole operation of teaming up with NGOs, nonprofits, and elected officials, and they donate to them to basically like get their program and their and their religion to spread it amongst like immigrant and Black and brown populations. And like low income populations as well.
That's the next target. They work the same way that MLMs work, where they're like, okay, we've saturated this level, and now let's move down to more recent arrivals, and that's fucked up because a lot of people remember the famous. Did you guys ever watch Going Clear, the Alex Gibney Jigsaw documentary about Scientology? Great documentary.
It's very good. It's very good.
I strongly recommend it. And kind of transitioning us a little bit back toward the last night's event and movies. Alex Gibney had a documentary series. Jigsaw had a documentary series a few years ago that I believe was called Crime of the Century, and it had to do with the Sackler family, right? Which, for those who don't remember or don't know, Sackler family probably profited more than any other family out there in the world, in the U.S. during the directly off of the opioid crisis, right? It's a great documentary. It was like a 3-part miniseries, was slated for HBO, and just kind of like disappeared. It just went away. It was out for its 3 or 4 weeks, and then like you couldn't find it on HBO Max. You couldn't pay to rent it. You couldn't go on Amazon or anything like that. I thought that was kind of weird when it was going on. Just recently, it got put back on HBO Max, and I was thinking about that as the Oscars were announcing that Laura Poitras, her documentary, was up. It was called All the Beauty and the Bloodshed. It's supposedly an incredible documentary. I haven't seen it yet. Deals with similar topic, Nan Goldin and also the Sackler family. This movie, up until like 2 days before the Oscars, you couldn't find this fucking movie anywhere, and it had like a huge deal with Warner Brothers. It was supposed to be on HBO. You couldn't rent it. You couldn't find it anywhere. And I just like, I'm always like freaked out by the documentary category. Like I was texting with you guys earlier. I think that the Navalny documentary is probably fucking propaganda. Like I saw that. It looks like it's like NATO propaganda, basically. Don't forget Putin's bad, which he is, but it's like a one-sided story. And every documentary these days.
Have you watched it?
Deals with, I watched. I finally got around to watching it, and it had like. What did you think of it?
Look, I mean, so I think Putin is bad inherently. Yeah. I think he's like extremely corrupt and authoritarian, and like just a terrible person. I thought the documentary was interesting. I thought it was well made. I think it is propaganda, and I mean, I think the documentary is worth watching. I think Navalny is like an interesting guy. My problem with the documentary is that, I think definitely Navalny is somebody that's been persecuted, right? I mean, he's in jail for his work, right? I mean, there's an element, there's like a lot of elements of truth to what the documentary is showing. But the problem with the documentary for me is that it like largely glossed over very quickly on Navalny's dealings and relationships with fascists, white supremacists, and National Socialists in Russia. And that's not a conspiracy. Yeah, that's not a conspiracy theory for me to say that. I mean, this is something that is addressed in the film very quickly. Navalny actually acknowledges it and said these are all tactical alliances and blah, blah. But the reality is Navalny is like a far-right, anti-immigrant, like homophobic, racist like figure, So I thought that really deserved more exploration, because I mean, this is not some guy that's like dealing with like, right wing or even like traditional far right figures. I mean, he like made alliances with like Nazis, so that disturbed me.
I forgot where I saw it, but there was something pointing out like the hypocrisy or contradiction, whatever you want to call it, of the U.S. celebrating democracy in Georgia while lionizing a guy who I think called them rodents, if I'm not mistaken. Like he's not. It's not like it's not like he has like he's like, oh, he stepped in it this time. These are very strident, like anti-human, like things to be holding in your heart.
Yeah, I read some people that were kind of like comparing it to, oh well, this is just like when a JD Vance type of Republican or conservative in the U.S. runs in a place like Ohio, and they have to appeal to right leaning electorate, and but like Tomas said, it's a little further than that. I mean, there are some avowed Nazis.
The idea that this is against his will does not seem to scan for me. Like he's also just playing like, to a crowd. But
also like I don't like that. Like I don't like JD Vance, and I think he's a fucking horrible person and a nativist and somebody that's like lying and spreading like propaganda and attacking immigrants while also taking like a bunch of big tech money from Peter Thiel, like a guy that's completely full of shit. So in a way, I kind of like respect Navalny a little more because at least he's like actually putting his ass on the line.
Yeah.
But he is also heavily involved.
He's showing his Azov tattoos. He's showing his Nazi tattoos out publicly, as opposed to a JD Vance who probably get some tramp stamps.
Look, I guess what I'm saying is, if I was in Russia, I would be anti-Putin. Obviously, like that's not like the ideological project that would identify me at all. But like I wouldn't throw my lot with Navalny either. Like this guy sucks. He doesn't represent me. Like that's not the ideology that I want to follow.
What did you guys make of? Did either of you hear that that Zelensky tried and made a request to appear live via satellite feed and was rejected to appear during the Oscars? Did you hear anything about that?
I did not. I had heard that it was going to happen last year. I forget who it was, but it was I think it was. I don't want to like repeat things that aren't confirmed, but I guess
that's what we do, man.
Sure. Like I heard there was a rumor that they were trying to get him beamed in like via satellite with Michelle Obama when the war was like first starting last year. like it was going to be like, that force,
like Sordin from Power Rangers. That what?
Yeah. Like I had heard rumors of like they were trying to do something like high pageantry or something like at the height of the invasion during last year's Oscars. So you guys probably all saw that clip of whatever it was, like that like dance of like the winged angel or whatever representing Ukraine.
No, I did not. Yeah, I missed it.
I have to hope that killed off any like Zelensky at an awards show. I think anyone who saw that clip is like, all right, like we know what not to do, and it's shit like this. So like I hope that if anything, like that clip will have at least killed off any. It was honestly, to bring it back to the movies, I had read the book in high school of All Quiet on the Western Front.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't see the movie. I felt like, all right, I know what happens. And I'm not going to spend 2.5 hours watching something where I read the book.
It's a bit much. I didn't see that one either.
a lot of people were talking about like, oh, it's wartime at the Oscars, coincidence because of Russia invading Ukraine. I was like, if anyone has either read the book or seen the movie, All Quiet on the Western Front's motif is that war is horrible and it treats human as expendable, and like you're fighting for a cause you had no say in on behalf of people who don't care about you. Like it's like a very like bleak look at World War One, and to see people use that as like, oh, will the Russia's invasion of Ukraine push audiences into the arms of All Quiet on the Western Front? And I was like, that's not the type of movie that this is.
Yeah.
Like, if you were going in looking for war propaganda from that movie, I think, unless you're really, I mean, maybe you are really stupid, in which case, like, fine, but you weren't going to find it there. Like, you were
Yeah,
going to find some.
It's not the Expendables.
No.
Well, I've always felt like I've always had sort of an operating theory that period, like pre 1980 war movies, there's not necessarily a propagandistic element to them, but there is like a almost like a consent manufacturing where there's a predicate there where it's like from Vietnam and back, everything like all the way back to like, you know, whatever, like Roman war movies and shit. It's like, look how nasty and gross war used to be. And there's this unspoken thing like, oh, it's better now. Now we use machines and robots and drones and stuff. Like it's not like this anymore. It's, you know, it's better
Betraying
now.
a guilty conscience a little bit.
Yeah. It's I always feel like I remember, I mean, like I was old enough. I was technically an adult when Saving Private Ryan came out, and I went and saw that. And then a lot of the discourse around that was like, can you believe how brutal war used to be? As if war's not still brutal in 1999 or whatever, you know, like as if it wasn't still. It always felt like a little weird when those movies, those big budget, you know, screen grabby 1941, like those big movies would come out. And it was like kind of like they were trying to, you know, cast aspersions. I don't know. That might just be my own.
I do kind of like, I get like if you're a head of state, you're being invaded by a larger country, you're probably going to try to do what you can to like rally people to your cause and like keep what's going on like in like public consciousness. But I do think there's to pick the Oscars is something you would request to beam into. I do think is like what you're trying to make like the Avengers real. Like do you think like this is like epic and like, oh, we're all like superheroes or whatever? Like there's a little like something juvenile about it. I'm sorry. Like it undermine like if your whole thing is we're in danger, that so appearing at the Oscars even via satellite I think would undermine your I can't imagine like it would never happen, but let's just say like Muqtada al-Sadr requesting to like beam into the Grammys or whatever. Like I just can't imagine someone who's like invested in trying to rally his people to fight like a larger country being like, I'm going to need some of that glitz and glam to make my case. I just don't see it.
On the other side, I could see AMLO like doing the Latin Grammys. I could see.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
That kind of brings up a thing I wanted to ask you guys about, right? Which is like the birth of a genre. Because one thing I was noticing as I was seeing the results come in is that, like, as usual, not much comedy representation, no horror representation, even though comedy less so, but like horror, there's some really incredible cinematic stuff happening in the realm of horror these days. Like horror is good. There's good horror that comes out.
Yep.
And I was trying to think like, are we just like flattening all of the genres? And then I realized there is a new genre and it kind of doesn't make sense, but you hear people say it and they say an A24 movie. They're like, oh, that's an A24 movie. Even movies that aren't made by A24, if they have that indie twee feel to them or whatever, people are like, oh, that's
the quirky bullshit factor, like everything everywhere all at once.
Yeah,
basically, like it's an Annapurna movie, but with neon lighting, basically.
Yeah,
like
with bisexual lighting.
Yeah.
I just thought it was interesting because even a lot of the movies yesterday that like maybe didn't do as well as we would have thought they would, they felt like A24 movies. Like Whale is an A24 movie and it has that vibe, right? I mean, Everything Everywhere All at Once. I mean, you could make a case that like Banshees, movies like that are kind of like they have that feel. It almost feels like an independent.
Wasn't The Northman an A24?
And Northman was an A24 movie, by the way. I think
was a great film.
One of the most underrated movies of last year, The Northman. I fucking love that movie. Yeah, I don't know. Do you think there's stuff? What do you guys think in terms of like fixing the Oscars? I had an idea. Yeah, you tell me, Tia. Now
before we get into that,
yeah.
Before we get into that, and this is something that I've spoken about with Bean, that's our friend Gerald. We need to bring back the tight 90. I am so fucking sick of going to a movie
and 220s
and having to sit there for 3.5 fucking hours of bullshit. Like the Avatar movie. I'm sorry. First of all, wasn't that great. It was just not. It just wasn't. It was okay.
The last hour was what made it worth it.
It was 3.5 hours.
Yeah.
Insane. Look, I just like we need to go back to like the 90s day, like Lethal Weapon style, like tight 90. I want to be out of there in 90 minutes. And sometimes you drop, a gem that deserves to be 2 hours, 2.5 hours, even something like Uncut Gems, which was one of the best films that came out in the last 5 years or whatever. That was like 2 hours and 15 minutes?
Yeah, it was
something
a lot.
Like that,
It's become the standard. It's become like the standard. 2 hours is the starting point now.
Yeah, and that's fine if the film is great, but like, it's gotten ridiculous. Like, I went to see the Black Panther Wakanda Forever, the sequel.
Oh my god, it was so long.
Like 3.5 hours. 3.5 hours.
It was like 2 movies.
It was okay. Like, I enjoyed the movie, but at a certain point, I'm like, bro, I want to get the fuck out of here.
I don't know if you guys know many screenwriters or people who aspire to be screenwriters, but there's this like a rule of the 100-page rule, and if you have proper formatting, it should be a page is a minute. 1 page is a minute of movie time.
Yeah.
And if you come pitching something over 100 pages and you're not fucking Martin Scorsese,
right?
The operating logic used to be like, get the fuck out of here. Who do you think you are? It's like having like a 6-page resume. Nobody does that,
Right.
And somehow that's been completely subverted now.
It's ridiculous. So that's number one step to fixing the movies right now. In my opinion.
But to your point about the A24, like I do remember like when like in the 2000s, like quote unquote like an indie movie was like a middle-class family going on a sad vacation, basically. And then like everyone started making movies like that, and like it became like a way for like if you were a big name who wanted to like go in a more serious direction, you started making movies like that. And then like Netflix was like, oh, let's just make like a lot of like very average movies about sad people going on a bad vacation together. Like it became like
what they would do is they would take that. Now what'll happen, Jared, is if that's a good script, they'll take it and they'll make that into a thriller, a horror thriller or something, like a psychological thriller.
Like I guess I can explain why I'm not on the same page. I mean, I'm like, I liked the movie, but like Everything Everywhere All at Once, like I felt like all the ingredients for a good movie were there in the real world. Like you had a woman and a husband who were like looking at divorce, even though she didn't know it, like complicated relationship with the parents. The kid is gay and doesn't get along with, like, there's, might lose the business and then might lose everything after that, or owes back. Like there's a lot there for like a good family drama. And then I felt like when she's in that simulacrum, that other universe, in the simulacrum of her husband is explaining the rules of the universe to her in that elevator. It was like pulling on the emergency brakes, and it's like, okay, let me get my pen and paper and write down everything that the elevator man is saying. Yeah, and it's like, all right, basically, forget everything I just said in the elevator. This is basically where we do kung fu. And there's something called an everything bagel that's going to make your eyes roll all the way to the back of your head.
I'm so pissed, visibly pissed.
The most Reddit. I'm sorry. Like, again, I liked the movie. I thought Michelle Yeoh deserved everything that she got. I'm not saying, I would never say to someone, don't go see the movie. But I can't get on board with it in the same way that the people who were really behind this film seem to be.
And look, I don't want to seem like a complete hater. I will say it was very creative. It was very different. It took a lot of risks. I'm rooting for all, I'm glad, like, because it is something different, right? Aside from like jokes and giggles, I'm glad that's something different
right.
won an Oscar for Best Picture, even though I didn't like it. And I would recommend that, I wouldn't tell anyone don't go see it, because obviously I'm in the minority, I guess. Like, a lot of people like it, some people don't. So it's an interesting watch. I just personally didn't do much for me, but I will recommend people go see it, because it is genuinely an interesting film.
The sports guy, Bill Simmons, has a great feature on one of his podcasts where he says, like, best pee break, right? Like, would you take like 20, 30 minutes away to just go take a piss? Like, what would you say is the pee break in Everything Everywhere All at Once? Probably like in that middle area that you were talking about before.
The everything bagel. I'm sorry. I hated it so much.
I passed out. I don't know.
Tomas is like, when the dancing elephants and the bear start talking to you and telling you about your failures, that go take a piss.
Yeah, I legit fell asleep after like a little bit.
So my idea to fix the Oscars is this, and I've heard somebody talk about this before, and I thought it was a great idea. To spice things up. You know how they're always trying to be like, oh, well, let's throw in Black Panther, even though you know that Black Panther is like not going to win or whatever. It's like kind of pointless, and it's just their way of trying to stay relevant or whatever. What about a new category that's just like a better name than this, but just call it home run swing, right? So like a movie that really fucking tried something and it didn't work out. This year would probably be like Babylon. I don't know if you guys saw Babylon or not.
No, I only know that Jimmy Kimmel's joke from last night that it lost $100 million.
Yeah, I know
about it.
But it was a big swing. Somebody tried something. And it's like, the problem is what everybody complains about, and what I agree with, is the Marvelization of everything, right? Everything's getting turned into some kind of fucking Marvel movie. And the reason why is like, well, they make money and they get enough critical acclaim that we can show our faces. It's not like, I don't know, like it's not like overtly bad trash. Like you can at least have some a below the line award nominations or whatever. But what if you just got an award for taking a big swing and not doing a Marvel movie and putting like 30, 40, 50, $100 million behind some weird fucking thing that people haven't done before, and it fails, but you still get the home run swing Oscar? And then maybe more people will try it, and maybe they'll do a better Babylon. Or
so it's like a lovable loser kind of a movie?
Kind of, yeah. Like you divorce it from the final result and you try to just consider the idea of what they were trying to do and be like, damn, I see what you were trying to do there. Okay, you know.
And
like,
I don't think it necessarily has to be like a failed movie, right? Just something.
No, it doesn't have to be a failed.
It could be an innovation award.
Right. Innovation. Like even Avatar could have won something like that, you know, like where it changed, you know, they invented new fucking technology. That's a big deal, you know. They invented like new cameras and shit to make that. So that's kind of like my idea for
I think I will say this. It has been a long time. I think it's been 10 years since I sat down and watched an awards show, mostly just because I've been working too much and just don't have the time. And yesterday, like I was telling David, I had health-related embarrassments to take care of, so I didn't watch. But I think the Oscars.
Jerry fell out of a closet and like toppled down some stairs. And
I stepped on a series of broomsticks and injured my face permanently in a row. I think Will Smith already saved the Oscars because as I was watching the clips come in, I was like, wow, everyone's having such a nice time. Like, this is like, it's like the Oscars as I remember them from like back in the day. Like, I think Jimmy Kimmel was doing a good job from the clips that I watched. It seemed like everyone was enjoying themselves and getting along in a camaraderie way. And then I was like, why is it striking me that everyone's having a good time? I was like, oh yeah, because last year
there was literal violence on the stage.
Like that Three Stooges line of why are you hitting yourself in the head because it feels so good when I stop. Now that there was no one around to smack people and have that be the conversation, and you're seeing how nice a time everyone's having. There was a part of me that's like, I wish I was watching, honestly. I wish I was watching this in real time. I mean, look at how lovely this is.
Was Will Smith there, or is he like actually like prohibited from attending?
He is not allowed to be there. He was not allowed to be there.
He's got 10 years. Yeah, he's got to serve 10 years of time.
Oh my God.
That movie Emancipation.
He's got a 10-year ban. That's, oh my God. And what about Chris Rock? Is he allowed? Was he there?
Yeah,
yeah. What did he do?
He didn't do nothing wrong. He just got hit.
I know, but was he there? Did he go?
And then put out a bad Netflix special.
Oh no, I don't think so.
But there's an interesting knock-on effect there. What if what if Will Smith being barred from Oscar consideration for 10 years? What if we start getting like Independence Day Will Smith again?
So that
could be fucking cool. 10 years
doing good.
10 years of blockbuster fucking Independence Day style Will Smith.
This is the thing. Doing good movies out of spite is very funny to me. Like just like knocking it out of the park just because you won't be able. I mean, they could award him something. Like I don't know if he's been banned from being nominated. I just know that he's banned.
No, I think he is. You know what? Again, back to our fucking us not wanting to perpetuate misinformation. I'm not 100% sure, but my understanding is in the context of that movie Emancipation, it was like, he's not going to be able to get any, like that movie won't get him. He won't get any consideration. I don't know if that. I mean, he was a producer on it, so the movie probably is doomed as well. Yeah,
I just looked it up. He cannot go to the Oscars for the next decade, but he can be nominated, but he will not be able to accept the award in person.
So this is, I think, the formula. It's just Will Smith like puts his shoulder against the wheel, grinds out. Maybe hey, listen, we'll take the old and the new. We'll do 2000 style indie and A24. We'll have a middle class family going on a disappointing vacation, and then they get whisked away to an alternate universe, and they have to do wacky stuff in neon lighting, and it gets nominated. Yes, and it gets nominated for 11 awards. Will Smith wins Best Actor. He can't go, so Jada delivers the acceptance, and her acceptance is just everything Will Smith thinks about Chris Rock at that moment.
Just terrible delivery, bad jokes, like and everybody has to sit and take it.
Yes,
and the movie, the central construct of the movie that gets nominated is an almond croissant that contains the entirety of the universe. He's shaking his head. He's in pain. He's in physical pain. The only other thing I wanted to talk with you guys about, if there's stuff that you want to bring up, please do. But like, did you guys hear the story about? By the way, people our age, like fucking Kiwi Kwan has been a part of our life forever, and good for him winning an Oscar. But did you guys hear this fucking story where in between that movie, Everything Everywhere All at Once, wrapping, and it actually going on the promotional, trip or whatever, like between the end of the production and the beginning of it becoming this huge phenomenon, he had to find just one fucking job to keep his health insurance active through the Guild. And he couldn't find a single fucking job. And so his health insurance lapsed during this time when everyone's like, oh my God, we're rediscovering this guy from our childhood. And this incredible actor, great story, fucking uninsured, can't get fucking healthcare coverage. Isn't that fucking crazy?
That's nice.
I mean, it's really not. It's America, baby.
It's America. I guess it's just nothing crazy.
I've been uninsured for the last, like world's smallest violin. Like I do pretty well. I have like a nice salary, whatever. But I'm an independent contractor.
Right.
Yeah.
So independent of that, I mean, I still don't have health insurance.
So you don't have like a bronze plan or some shit on the market or whatever?
No, now I actually recently got like a gig that gives me insurance, thankfully. So great. But it's just like employer-based health insurance is idiotic and barbaric and stupid.
It's ridiculous that we've decided to make that one thing in our life. I like how we come back to our core stuff. Like we're talking about the Oscars and we come back to it.
I will say,
did you guys ever hear this movie called Sicko by Michael Moore?
I actually cried during that movie.
Yeah.
You want to talk about a movie I cried? I tried to like catch up on some of the Oscar, like movies that were nominated and beforehand. I watched with my daughter last night this movie, Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, and I was gutted. Oh. I was gutted by the end of this. I was like a blubbering.
I heard really good things about it.
There's like I probably have my own shit going on too, but like I was like we were both crying. My cold-hearted wife, she was like, "Oh, this is a good movie," but me and my daughter are like, pouring tears.
Father-daughter bonding moment.
Total bonding moment. It was a great movie. It was a great movie. It did not win Best Animated Short. It was up for it, but Best Animated Feature. Sorry, it was up for it, and the fucking Guillermo del Toro Pinocchio movie won instead.
I love that movie.
No, I don't like it.
No, I love that. Might have been my number one.
I haven't seen it.
My mom cried, and she only likes movies about Jewish women who go on a vacation and nothing bad happens to them. So
that movie was also set during. I read that it was set during
between World War I and World War II.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Historically accurate.
Like the basically like Spaniard fascist like drone strike. Jupete's son.
Yep.
Jesus Christ. Movie magic, folks. The movies are back.
That might have been my number one from last year, honestly.
Really?
Was Pinocchio, yeah.
Well, let's end with that. What was your guys' favorite movies from last year, irrespective of like critical consensus and all that? What was your favorite movie from last year?
Favorite movie to watch other than Pinocchio?
No, your favorite movie to eat, Jared. What the fuck do you think?
Okay, David. Okay.
Oh, all right. I see what we're doing.
Okay, all right.
I'm trying to think of
honest,
one, actually.
I thought it was a lean year. I'll be honest. I went. The whole reason I didn't watch this year, even though I in theory could have because I was in bed. I just didn't feel strongly about any particular movie that came out this year. I liked Top Gun, but I did feel like it was like pandering to the fans of the first movie, where it's like, spoiler, but like, oh guys, he's stranded, but guess what? They've got the exact model plane from the 1980s movie for him to fly around in, like the good old days. Remember that? Remember back then?
Remember when things were better?
Remember when
hair was colored normal? Remember? T, what was your favorite movie?
I can't say one, but I will say Top Gun was excellent. I don't give a shit if it's propaganda. It was really good.
I liked it.
RRR.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Excellent.
RRR was probably my favorite. Did you get a chance to see that in the theater, or did you have to watch it on Netflix? Because it came out like very briefly in theaters.
That's on Netflix.
Yeah.
And I'll also say, then I really, really like The Northman.
That's mine. Yeah. You stepped on mine. That's exactly what you guessed. Mine. My favorite movie experience last year was The Northman, followed closely. And again, this goes back to fucking, parent, dadding, as they call it, Daddington Island. Bob's Burgers, the movie.
I never saw it.
It was a hilarious, summer, right? Fun, funny movie where they're able to do the thing where like they take something that's on TV and they take the TV restrictor plates off and they're like, okay, let's have a little bit more fun with this. Yeah. And that's a great TV show. And my daughter and I, again, we love it. And we went to the movie and saw the theaters and saw it together. And it was fucking great.
I would also like to if I do feel any vindication, it's all the people who told me that Glass Onion was this like, oh my God, you have to see Glass Onion. It's amazing. It's so good.
I refuse.
What was it, 3 months ago that everyone had to go watch it, and now no one is crying over Glass Onion?
There's too much of that shit, though. There was too much of the Glass Onion, the Menu, Triangle of Sadness, the fucking White Lotus, all of that shit was like, oh my God, don't you hate people with money? And I'm like, yes, I already fucking hate people with money.
Yeah.
Like, I already do, though.
For people who are like going, like, again, I feel like this is forced. Like, I feel like people are lying, not just to me, but about themselves, about the movie that they're watching, and saying, well, this regurgitates a lot of what I'm seeing on my Twitter timeline, or I'm seeing a lot of the pressure points that I think like in Vulture or some like,
Slate or whatever.
Whatever. It's going to be thought of as a good movie, so I like it now. It's a good movie to me also. I do think that people are way too anxious about something as low stakes as going to the movies, where I think there is a certain type of movie goer that has given up on actual politics and thinks if I could just curate the correct opinions on pop culture, that's enough. And if you're listening to this, it's not. We're going to put your ass to work. Yeah.
Okay, so I promised you guys with 15 minutes that we have left, I promised you all that we would do a little case file this week. So let me jump into it, and hopefully, if you guys want to just jump in, whatever, it's fine. But I wrote it yesterday in preparation, kind of thinking about how we can tie this world to our world of Florida and the quest to find out why we're like this. And during that period of time in the last few years, there's been a lot of myth making that's popped up around our economy here in Florida. You can take it from all the folks who've been moving here, tech libertarians, disgraced real estate agents, Staten Island small business shitheads. They're all flocking here because our streets are paved with gold. Of course, much of that gold is little more than piss. We are a very poor state.
Fool's gold, I'd say.
Fool's gold. It can be easily called piss gold. Workers have no protections. Unemployment's low, but so is the pay. Opportunity doesn't really exist very much here. Apart from that, we're also a very homogenous economy, right? There's agriculture, there's tourism, there's real estate. That's about it. But when you look north from here, you see Georgia. You see a state that is rapidly evolving, diversifying to meet the economic times. Consider Georgia's film industry, which since 2016, I don't know if you guys knew this, Georgia has been the home to more feature film productions than any other state, including California.
And reality television is huge for them now, too. Like all those shows that end with the Made in Georgia peach. I can kind of get into the background of that.
Cool.
Rick Scott is basically responsible for it.
I have something on that. So yeah. I'm gonna get there and then you can jump in.
Yeah.
As you kind of allude to, Jared, it didn't happen by accident. Back in 2002, Georgia started offering its very first tax incentive for the film industry, luring film and production houses to the state. Georgia was smart. What they did is they built out networks, facilities. They built out real infrastructure, training centers, all that stuff, all the characteristics of real industry. And it took equal parts hard work, luck, and Ted Turner, right? Because he, between CNN, Turner, TNT, TBS, all of the original programming that's done there. Governor after governor have maintained that commitment to film industry in Georgia, even when it wasn't politically popular. The program's expanded, and today, in exchange for about $500 million in subsidies each year, Georgia's GDP gets a $5 billion boost every year from the film industry, according to the Georgia Film Office.
Yep.
But the effort to court the film industry actually started way earlier than that. And this is the story I want to tell you guys. Back in 1972, director John Boorman started working on what was going to be his fifth feature film, a movie that would explore the limits of human depravity, wherein 4 Atlanta businessmen take a canoe trip through northern Georgian wilderness. In the lead, Boorman cast a mostly unknown TV actor, a sexy-ass former Florida State running back, best known at the time for dating singer Dinah Shore. His name, Burt Reynolds. The movie was Deliverance. The film was Boorman's opus, and it went on to get nominated for 3 Oscars, including Best Picture, where it lost out to a long-forgotten, obscure little gangster movie called The Godfather. Today, Deliverance is considered an all-time great film, but its biggest impact is its legacy. Following its commercial and critical success, then-Governor Jimmy Carter established the Georgia Film Commission in 1973. Carter had seen how, when Deliverance came out, it spurred tourism. It spurred not just transient temporary film productions, but actual transplants. People were moving to Georgia to actually do the work and participate in, the tax base. Back to Burt. Burt became Hollywood's most famous leading man of his era. He would go on to use Georgia in a bunch of his movies, including The Longest Yard, Gator, Smokey and the Bandit, Cannonball Run, Smokey and the Bandit 2, Sharky's Machine. All of them were filmed in Georgia. Many of them filmed exclusively in Atlanta. These were the precursors, right? Because then later you would see Driving Miss Daisy, Outbreak, literally everything Tyler Perry has done, hundreds of movies. Then came the ultra big budget stuff. Almost every time, I don't know if you guys know this, but every time you see like the Avengers or fucking Thor or Captain America destroying New York, that's Atlanta. It's actually Atlanta where they're shooting that. The Walking Dead, right? FX and AMC, they began a spate of these big time prestige TV projects. They laid down roots in Georgia. More people began moving there. If you live in Miami, you know probably somebody who like in the last 10 years left Miami because they moved for some technical job up in Georgia. Remember the Titans? Not in North Carolina. It was in Georgia. Another funny thing I found looking this up, pretty much any time something is set in Alabama, it's in Georgia because they're just not going to film in fucking Alabama. Like nobody wants to do it. It's billions of dollars. I personally have a theory that the infusion of the film industry is at least partly behind the bluing of Georgia over the last couple of election cycles.
Yeah.
But fellas, will you guys believe me when I tell you this? Not only could this have been us, it should have been us. Mm-hmm. In 1971, Burt Reynolds was still living part-time in Florida. And when he got a hold of the script for Deliverance, he approached Governor Reubin Askew with the idea, the pitch, film it in Florida. and using it as a vehicle to launch productions in the Sunshine State. Along with going to FSU, Reynolds had grown up in Palm Beach County and always, until his death, maintained a home in Florida. But Governor Askew shot down the idea. He didn't want the film to shoot here. Reynolds also owned at the time a cabin in Northwest Georgia. And then he moved down the line to Governor Carter, who was happy to host the production. And after that, Reynolds and Carter helped co-found the Georgia Film Commission, promoting Georgia as a state to shoot films and television productions. Meanwhile, here in Florida, we have the most biologically diverse, one of the most photogenic states. We have a place with all these shady characters, incredible stories, great locations. We are tailor-made to be Hollywood East, and we're not. And we can't seem to do better than last year. The biggest production we had was like a couple of exterior shots in Magic Mike 3. And that was it. In 2017, a Florida boy until the very end, Reynolds continued to campaign for film in Florida, despite the fact that the work had become just like a trickle at that point. No one was here filming. Still very few people are here filming. That was the year that the latest tax incentive expired. A lot of it is unused and didn't end up getting deployed or marketed. Reynolds was quoted as saying, "More films should be shot here. It's not Florida's fault because Florida's got everything, you know? It's the governor," who at the time was Rick Scott. And we do have some incentives. They're patchwork. They're not part of a bigger strategy. I looked up the recent projects on the Florida Office of Film and Entertainment's website. It's a bunch of titles that I don't really recognize. Low-end digital, throwaway videos, non-cinema, commercial shit. It's not that Florida's not in the same league as Georgia. We're not even in the same fucking sport. And to current day, Ron DeSantis, not a particularly film-friendly guy. He's not courting that particular edge of the culture. He's not.
Yeah, because they're sickos. Yeah, they're indoctrinating our children.
So yeah, Gerald, I don't know if you had anything like about that, but that was kind of just like a little thing that
when I came down in the mid 2010s, well, I guess it would be January 2016. A lot of the productions were already starting to migrate. You had productions. A lot of them were starting to migrate from Florida to Georgia. In Georgia, they hadn't raised their gas tax since I think like 1932 or some shit like that. And basically, the way they were going to offset a film tax credit was by a slight hike in gas tax. And the pitch was basically, would you guys be willing to raise taxes that we haven't touched in 80 years in order to bring an entire sector of the national, now international, with streaming? You can stream anything from anywhere, but basically, if you have VPN, economy, to Georgia. And of course the answer was yes. Basically, Rick Scott had like a very like Ayn Randian notion of how the economy should work, and basically said like industry should be able to sink or swim.
Right. They shouldn't need help.
It shouldn't need a government intervention.
This was a long-running debate, specifically as it relates to film, from like 2010 on, through his
to let an entire sector of the economy go to what was at the time another red state. This was not Georgia. Was not Warnock and Ossoff were not the senators in the mid 2010s. Like this was very recent, but basically, they basically allowed a tax credit to expire because of the fountainhead. And now there's an entire sector of the economy that shift. I remember in the mid 2010s, the big thing they were trying to keep from moving was what's that one where The Rock was a sports agent?
Oh no, sorry? I'm sorry, Ballers.
Yeah. That was the big thing that people were very proud of in Miami, where they were trying to keep in Miami because I forget.
It went to LA.
That's what happened. Yep. So for a production that was, you had a big celebrity, a big name, and it was supposed to be set in that, in that locality. A lot of people just said, fuck it, we can just shoot in LA and split the difference, and we'll just make it look like, Miami or what have you, or we'll just make it look like a sport, the South Florida. There's a lot that's didn't have to happen.
We talked a little bit about like A24 movies, right? And A24 is one of the last production houses that actually tries to come here and film stuff here in Florida.
Yeah.
Like Florida Project, obviously, but like a lot of other stuff they've also filmed in Florida, and they do it because of the aesthetic value. I know people shit on this state rightfully.
It's beautiful.
But
it's a beautiful place.
Like those early seasons of Ballers looked fucking really good, man. Where they were like doing the fast smash cuts with like you know Beanie Siegel songs playing and shit, and The Rock walking on a yacht. That's fucking dope. That's cool.
Yeah. But California, you know, they're losing out to not just Georgia. New Orleans is another hot place, and you wouldn't think it. Canada, a lot of localities in Canada are aggressively trying to get the film industry up there, so they have to be generous just to compete. And Rick Scott decided, I don't want to do that. The film industry should be able to sink or swim on its own. And that's very, unless you're Babylon, that's not that hard for them to do. It's a matter of where they're going to shoot it, not whether they're going to shoot it. They will find the money. It's a matter of, do you want that money being spent there or somewhere else?
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, I will say, and maybe this is stupid, would bringing like the film industry to Florida be helpful to Florida residents, or will it just be like another like tech industry effect where you just have a bunch of fucking assholes with a lot of money moving in and like bringing up property value and rents for everybody else?
I would say those are not mutually exclusive. Like you will have a lot of assholes in there being assholes, but there is a reason why all these places are competing to get entertainment dollars. Is not just that they'll shoot something once, but that they'll shoot something consistently.
That they'll do like
and
Tyler
all the
Perry.
time.
They'll you know, like if it looks like Miami Mayor Francis Suarez's play to lure tech here, and it's just random scattershot incentives here, tweets there, and just like come on, and a few hedge fund billionaires coming and saying they're moving here. No. But if it's something that looks like that Tyler Perry, which whatever, I'm not going to get into the whole Tyler Perry thing, but if it's like Tyler Perry, that fucking Studio City that he built that, you know, employs like 10,000 people, and they're all Georgia native people. They're all people that have lived there forever, you know, and it's like good paying jobs. Like it's not, I mean, like most private partner, what do they call it? Private public partnerships. Most of them are bullshit. They're just money giveaways. Yep. I think it's rare when you find one that actually can support something worthwhile. And if you ask people in Georgia, like they definitely are glad that they are like the Hollywood of the East or whatever, because it does redound to them. Although I'm sure there's some gentrification too, you know.
I'll say this: if that, which is the ideal scenario, could happen in Miami and Florida, I would be for it. But because of the high level of corruption and the complete lack of trust that I have by public officials to not grift and make the absolute worst out of any sort of outside investment by any sort of heavy industry like that, I would be opposed to it. That's why I vote no on every single bond project or bond proposal in the city of Miami. Like for the Miami Forever bond, I voted no. And I have been vindicated. They've done nothing to curb climate change or sea level rise with that money. They've only used it to basically shut streets down so they can like shut out small businesses and bring in, you know, development and you know, and high-end stores. So, no, I do not want the film industry to come to Miami. We don't deserve it. Our elected officials don't deserve it.
I mean,
it's only going to make
the decision's been made. The decision's been made for you.
It's already been made for us, so it doesn't matter.
It's going to make things worse for residents. We need to focus on the basics like rent control, public transportation, the basics. The last thing I need right now, hold on. The last thing I need right now is like the Julia Tuttle Causeway or like the Palmetto being fucking closed down while I'm trying to get to some fucking work meeting because Vin Diesel is like fucking flipping a fucking like semi truck in the new, like in Fast and Furious 14, Fast and Furious. What, you know what I mean? Like, no, I'm shutting this down. No film industry in Miami. No film industry in Florida. We don't deserve it. Status quo. Go somewhere else. If you're a film executive, don't come here. It is a nightmare.
If it's up to Tomas, then you know what? Then for going forward, the final perfect representation of Miami that will have to live forward in film is Michael Mann's 2006 Miami Vice, one of the most underrated movies ever made.
And
we could have more of those, T. We could have more of those.
if you're a film industry executive, another thing, if somehow you're listening to this, you might think you're a hustler. You will get hustled.
You will get hustled.
You will lose your money. Like, don't come here. This is a warning.
And we will take your girl.
Yeah, we will take your girl and your cash.